On April 5th, Tommie McGlothen Jr., a 44-year-old black man, allegedly died in the custody of Shreveport police, according to the Caddo Parish District Attorney. At that time, SPD didn't report McGlothen's death publicly, and 54 days passed before the DA's office received an investigative file from police, with DA James Stewart saying that file is, quote, missing reports, statements, downloads, and other vital information essential to conduct a thorough and complete review. The DA is now asking citizens with video of the incident and eyewitnesses to come forward in the case, but none have until now. 4 witnesses spoke exclusively to me, describing the final minutes of McGlothen's life and allowing me to use this camera to record cell phone video of McGlothen's violent encounter with police. The first frames of the grainy video shows Shreveport police wrestling Tommie McGlothen to the ground under a carport on Eileen Lane. A few seconds into the nearly 4.5-minute long clip come the first blows. A white male officer hits McGlothen as a black female cop tries holding him down. The video that KSLA investigates recorded with a small camera off a cell phone gets shaky. Next, showing the female officer rolling over and getting up when the male cop kicks McGlothen. At this point, it's difficult to see on the wobbly video, but when officers try rolling the 44-year-old man over to handcuff him, McGlothen appears to stiffen up. That's when the male cop, on top of McGlothen, punches him 4 times. For the next 35 seconds, video shows McGlothen trying to wrestle free before he is heard screaming out as witnesses say police began tasing him. I spoke with 4 people who say they witnessed the incident, each saying minutes earlier they saw McGlothen walking up and down this street, and they say, quote, he seemed thrown in the head and was not acting right mentally. The cops then got called after McGlothen got into a fight with a man here on Eileen Lane and got beat up. Just before the 3-minute mark, with 3 cops now holding McGlothen down, a 4th officer runs into the picture, with witnesses saying and video appearing to show that white male cop punching McGlothen before another cop tases him at least 3 more times. Then McGlothen is hit 3 times with a baton in the leg. As the handheld video shakes, McGlothen is handcuffed and stood up. That's when witnesses say and video seems to show an officer shoving him to the ground. 15 seconds later, back on his feet, officers walk McGlothen to a squad car, his face appearing to slam against the hood. What happens next on the video is hard to see. It's blurry, but according to 4 witnesses and a police source, McGlothen turns and spits in the female officer's face. She, in return, punches McGlothen twice in his face. Then, according to witnesses, McGlothen fell to the pavement, hitting his head either on the street or the curb, according to those witnesses. In the last seconds of the video, a white male cop is seen picking McGlothen up, witnesses saying the officer put him in the back of a cop car where McGlothen got quiet, I'm told, and minutes later, according to the witnesses, McGlothen looked slumped over and unconscious. Now, there is a second video which I watched but was not allowed to record. It shows an ambulance getting on the scene, but according to the 4 witnesses and the cell phone video I watched, it was already dark when the ambulance got there. And one witness saw paramedics giving McGlothen CPR, and all of them tell me they fear he was already dead because, according to them, the ambulance drove off slowly with no lights or siren. We have posted the full cell phone video on our website. You can watch it right now at KSLA.com. But with a lot of questions still unanswered, I plan to keep digging into the death of Tommie McGlothen Jr. For now, I'm Chief Investigative Reporter Stacey Cameron.
Tommie McGlothlen's family says things were just not adding up. They say what they were told by Shreveport police is not what the video shows. For 2 months now, they have asked for answers, and finally this video surfaced, and they say it is what they suspected. We know this video is hard to watch, and before we brought it to you, we wanted to give Tommie McGlothlen's son the opportunity to view the video.
He locking up. They tasing him. Somebody came to hit him.
For months, Tommie McGlothen III searched for answers to how his dad ended up dead in police custody.
At least I know, I saw for myself what happened.
KSLA News 12 obtained video of what appears to be his father, Tommie McGlothen Jr., and his encounter with police on April 5th.
That's my father.
For 4 minutes, Tommie McGlothlen's son sat and watched in tears.
He yelling. He yelling. He yelling. They had hidden his legs. I seen his legs locked up and they tased him.
Tommie McGlothlen's son says he was horrified when he was called to the funeral home to view the body. He said his father had a broken nose, a broken jaw, his eye and entire right side of his face swollen.
They didn't tell me none of that, what I saw.
What did they tell you?
He told me that he got into an altercation with the homeowner and the police didn't use that much force on him, and that he could have got into a heart attack or cardio panic and died. And that's basically what they wanted us to believe. Okay, he in handcuffs. Okay, knocked him down, okay? He in handcuffs. He in handcuffs, okay?
The video raises even more questions for the family. While the family seeks answers, KSLA News 12 continues to wait on several of our Freedom of Information requests.
I needed to see that because it answers a lot of questions. But it do hurt, you know, to see that my father have to leave that way.
Tommie McGlothlen Jr.'s family has now hired an attorney to represent them in the case. Today, Tommie McGlothlen's family, along with their attorneys, stood together and spoke during a news conference at the Caddo Parish Courthouse demanding transparency and accountability of police actions following McGlothlen's death and the release of the video. You'll remember Monday, Chief Investigative Reporter Stacey Cameron exposed the cell phone video you just saw of McGlothlen's violent arrest. Tonight, Stacey is back with more from the family's attorney.
We demand full transparency.
Mixing no words, James Carter.
We are tired in this country of black lives being snuffed out by those who are here to protect us.
An attorney now representing the family of Tommie McGlothen Jr. says he fears a cover-up in the April 5th death of McGlothen.
Absolutely, we absolutely fear a cover-up here.
Following a violent encounter with Shreveport police captured on cell phone video given exclusively to KSLA Investigates. Seeing for himself the disturbing images,
a blind man can see what happened here.
Carter is now demanding that the 4 officers involved in the matter lose their badges
right now, not later,
and face criminal prosecution.
One thing we know, it should be homicide, murder.
Carter says a big concern in this case, a lack of transparency when it comes to SPD, saying it's unacceptable the 4 officers captured on the video stayed on the job.
They were put on administrative leave after the video appeared.
Until my KSLA investigation aired Monday.
It does bother me that the police department, with all of its resources, could not find the video when a reporter went out under their own free will and volition and was able to find that information. And we appreciate that.
That prompting Carter to say his firm will now launch its own investigation into McGlothlen's death, urging SPD and the city to release all video and reports of the incident immediately.
It's sad, it's unjustified, and it's not going to be tolerated.
Now, Carter said the family will be filing a lawsuit in connection with Tommie McGlothlen's death. He also addressed the autopsy report released yesterday, calling the official cause of death excited delirium, pseudoscience. that's used to justify police killing unarmed black men. So he says the family will seek its own independent autopsy of McGlothen's death.
The Caddo Parish coroner tells us he's stunned over what he saw on dash cam video in the recent arrest of Tommie McGlothen Jr. Here's why. Today, the coroner ruled McGlothen died, as you heard, of natural causes after that violent arrest. But he also said it may have been preventable. Dr. Todd Tommie says despite the violent struggle that we saw on tape just a short time ago in early April, the punches or the use of a taser or police batons didn't cause his death. Instead, the coroner says McGlothen died from what's called excited delirium. According to the American Medical Association, it's a condition that causes sudden death of individuals who are combative, as you see here, and in a highly agitated state. These individuals are often paranoid and have apparent immunity to pain, often associated with stimulant use and certain psychiatric disorders. Well, family now tells us McGlothen suffered from a mental illness. Dr. Tommie says excited delirium is highly survivable if the person is given medical attention. But that's what's troubling to him. He watched that dash cam video and says McGlothen was left in the back of that police car without medical attention for 48 minutes before he was later found unresponsive and not breathing.
The fact that he was placed in that police car and stayed there for 48 minutes before he was discovered to be unresponsive was time that he should have been receiving medical care. And as you probably know, and we've worked together before, I work at Oshner LSU in the emergency department. I don't know that I've ever had anybody die from excited delirium that's been brought into the hospital. If they make it to the hospital, they probably will survive. It's a treatable problem. In this situation, I think it was a failure to recognize.
So are you saying, Dr. Tommie, first of all, did you view the video that we showed on KSLA News 12 yesterday?
I did. Now, I did not have that video beforehand.
Okay.
The video that I've hours and hours of video is from police dash cams, police videos, etc. So I did not have that dash cam.
So the video that we showed on air yesterday, would that change your findings?
No. And let me tell you why. A complete autopsy was done. And he showed a lot of soft tissue contusions. He had a lot of bruising associated with it. He had subgaleal hemorrhages where he'd been hit in the head. He had been tased, but there was no internal bleeding. There was no internal injuries. There was no internal organ damage. There was no broken ribs. There was nothing from the violence that would have killed him. Now, that doesn't mean the violence was okay. I'm not justifying that. I'm just saying it wasn't the violent attack or the amount of force used to restrain him that actually led to his death.
But Dr. Tommie, it's hard to believe that the amount of blows that this man received to his legs, to his head, the tasing, it's hard to believe that didn't contribute to the excited delirium. Why would that not contribute? I know there was a lot of bruising and everything, but would that contribute to a heart attack?
The excited delirium is already a maximally excitable state. I mean, their heart rates are very high, their respiratory rates are very high, their adrenaline is flowing. It's already a maximal state. That's the reason it's so hard to have somebody under control. Now, I'm not going to say it helped. Don't get me wrong, but I think it would have happened either way.
Dr. Tommie said there were no illicit drugs in his system like cocaine or meth, no stimulants, but it did detect marijuana. Shreveport police have placed those 4 officers involved in that arrest on administrative leave during the remainder of this investigation. Tonight, KSLA Investigates is taking a deep dive into police transparency. It's an issue all over the country, including right here in Shreveport. 2.5 months after Tommie McGlothen Jr. died in SPD custody, this cell phone video is the only video that's been made public, and that only happened because witnesses gave it to KSLA. Shreveport police still have not released the official dash cam video. An expert in police oversight tells KSLA Chief Investigative Reporter Stacey Cameron that's a mistake.
All that you change changes you.
Calls for police transparency. It's come from protesters,
We are here to take 2 steps forward.
members of city council,
You share it at the beginning to get on top of it.
and a family attorney.
Full and complete transparency.
Demanding police release more information in the death of Tommie McGlothen Jr. or risk losing public confidence in the SPD, wanting to know how full transparency should look when a person dies after a violent encounter with police.
I think the department has an obligation to continue to inform the public.
I spoke with Merrick Bobb, a national expert on police oversight, and the first step, according to Merrick,
You need as much transparency as possible.
day one, tell the public a suspect died in police custody, place the officers involved on leave, and seek an independent investigation.
From there, the investigators would interview other witnesses and ultimately, within a short period of time, present a case.
But in the McGlothen case, almost 2 months passed before his death came to light, and Chief Ben Raymond didn't place any officers on administrative leave until the day KSLA released this cell phone video showing the final moments of McGlothen's life. Bob says the next thing police officials should do:
Officers wear badges. Those badges have their names on them.
Name the cops involved, and if records exist, release information on past complaints of officer misconduct.
All that should be out there and should be transparent.
However, in the McGlothen matter,
police brutality is real.
The city initially fought identifying these 4 officers, and officials still haven't released any information about their past conduct history with SPD.
You need communication from the very beginning.
The final step in full transparency, according to Bob,
Often nowadays, you'll find that there is some kind of video recording.
release video of the incident. And pointing to the recent shooting death of Rayshard Brooks, Bob says Atlanta police did it right, publicly putting this recording out.
Immediately, you got the tape playing, and you could make your own judgment as to whether the shooting was proper or not.
Now, Chief Raymond says he will release police dash cam video once the McGlothen investigation wraps up, but there's no time frame when that might happen, and Bob says there's no law keeping Chief Raymond or the city of Shreveport from releasing that video right now. And ever since my initial report aired, Chief Raymond's criticized me, saying I shouldn't have published the McGlothen cell phone video you just watched, claiming it doesn't tell the full story. Well, in full transparency, I've asked to interview the chief twice now. And while Raymond's talked with 3 other media outlets about this case, he won't sit down to answer tough questions with me. So, Chief Raymond, my invitation remains open. Reporting live in the studio, I'm Chief Investigative Reporter Stacey Cameron.
$25 million. That's the amount of money Shreveport would pay out if city leaders agreed to the demands of Tommie McGlothen's family, the man who died in police custody in April. KSLA Chief Investigative Reporter Stacey Cameron obtained exclusive cell phone video of the encounter. That's when this investigation suddenly picked up. And Stacey, then you've discovered that the city and Police Chief Ben Raymond now face the threat of a civil rights lawsuit. And the attorney is only giving the city a couple of days to give them an answer.
Well, that's right, Doug, at least for negotiations and a settlement. James Carter, a well-known lawyer with the Cochran Law Firm in New Orleans, he represents the McGlothen family. Yesterday, he sent a demand letter addressed to Mayor Perkins and 6 members of the City Council, according to a copy of that letter, which I read. It's 6 pages long, and the demand letter uses our reporting, this cell phone video, and a coroner's report and grand jury testimony to make the case that police caused McGlothen's death and that the city is liable and should pay damages now to avoid a long and expensive civil rights lawsuit. Now, in part, the demand letter claims that on April 5th, McGlothen was struggling with serious medical and mental issues, and that the 44-year-old man encountered SPD 3 times that evening, beginning around 5 o'clock, and officers knew McGlothen was in the midst of a mental health crisis. But according to the letter, during the first 2 encounters, SPD officers did not seek medical attention for McGlothen. The letter goes on, citing video from my investigation and grand jury testimony to claim during the 3rd encounter with SPD, McGlothen was brutally and inexcusably beaten, pepper sprayed and tased, calling it a savage beating. The letter alleges McGlothen was left unsupervised for 48 minutes and that he was eventually discovered in the backseat of an SPD patrol unit, unresponsive and in cardiac arrest. Now, the demand letter then turns to issues of law, arguing the 4 SPD officers involved violated SPD use of force and protective custody policies, demonstrating reckless disregard and deliberate indifference to McGlothen's safety and life. And as a result, the family's lawyers make their demand, seeking $25 million for special and punitive damages, pain and suffering, plus medical and funeral expenses. And the family's lawyer in that letter gave Mayor Perkins and City Council members a hard deadline, agree to settlement discussions by the end of business Thursday, or the lawsuit will be filed shortly. Now, according to the letter, the family's lawyer believes both the city and Shreveport Chief of Police Ben Raymond are financially liable for McGlothen's death, going so far as to say the chief's qualified immunity should be waived, wanting Raymond to be held personally liable. Finally, in calculating the $25 million settlement figure, the letter cites other high-profile police brutality cases, the $20 million awarded in the William Green matter out of Maryland, and a $12 million settlement in the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville. Now, I did reach out to the Cochran law firm and James Carter, as well as city leaders, SPD, and a law firm representing the city of Shreveport. No one has gotten back with me. Of course, I'll keep track of this case and Thursday's deadline to let you know what happens. Live in the studio, I'm Chief Investigative Reporter Stacey Cameron.
No racist! No peace! No justice! No peace!
This is definitely history. It is. It's very long overdue.
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
Being black in America right now, it looks good, it sounds good, and it makes you even prouder to be a black American in the United States of America.
Enough is enough! Enough is enough!
My mission today is to support Black Lives Matter and make sure that our voices is being heard as a whole and as a community.
No peace! No justice! No peace!
We are all against racism and police brutality, period. A lot of people think it is a black problem. It's a us problem. And if we don't address it, then we are complicit in it happening.
These racist cops have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. These racist cops have got to go. Hey, hey.
I'm very proud of the diversity that's out here today. Hopefully we can definitely accomplish our goal as a whole and as a nation.
Black lives matter! Black lives matter! Black lives matter!
At the end of the day, I hope to accomplish peace, justice, and equality for all.
No peace!
I also hope to accomplish, our voices being heard, and for the other side of the party to understand our pain and where we're coming from.
We just getting started! We just getting started!
There is unity here, there is love here, there is peace here.
Black lives matter! Black lives matter! Black lives matter!
Now, before hundreds of people walked from downtown Shreveport to the police department, they met in front of Government Plaza, where family members of Anthony Childs and Tommie McGlothen III spoke. Both men lost their lives while in police custody here in Shreveport. Other speakers also discussed prison reform and systematic change, and the group they hosted this protest, We the People, shared a list of demands to help create change here in the city.
The demands include to construct and implement a citizens review board that is independent from the police department to handle any investigations of crimes involving law enforcement whenever harmful methods are employed.
Other demands include requiring Shreveport police officers to test for implicit bias training, require body cameras and dash cameras for all officers and their vehicles, and better training practices within the department that include programs that will be evaluated every quarter.
And breaking at 4 Shreveport police officers now indicted in the death of this man, Tommie McGlothen Jr., a man who died in police custody in April after a struggle with officers. Thanks for joining us. For months, the family of Tommie McGlothen Jr. waited for those officers to be suspended. They stayed on the job for 2 months, and then they were suspended in June. Now, 4 officers are charged with negligent homicide and malfeasance in McGlothen's death. These are the officers indicted by a Caddo Parish grand jury. From left to right, Triona McCarter, Brian Ross, Damari Johnson, and James LeClaire. McGlothen died after a violent struggle with officers during a burglary call to a home on Eileen Lane. KSLA News 12 obtained exclusive witness video of the latter parts of that arrest, which shows officers punching and tasing McGlothen. Several witnesses describe McGlothen of having his face slammed against the hood of a squad car, hitting his head against the pavement, as well as being struck by a baton several times. Eventually, officers placed McGlothen in the back of a police cruiser, where the coroner says in-car video shows he lost consciousness. He was pronounced dead later that evening. In the last hour, the family attorney spoke in a news conference. You saw it live on the KSLA News 12 mobile app.
We're just very thankful for a very professional and objective district attorney who put before the citizens the evidence. And the evidence went where it logically would go, and that is resulting in charges of negligent homicide and malfeasance of office. It is a change in America now. We have a different mentality. We have a different approach. It's a more unified approach than we've ever had, right? So Dr. King talked about this when he said black men, white men, Jews, and Gentiles, we will all come together at one time in the history of this nation to litigate for justice without regard to race, color, and creed. I think America's tired of this. Of course, this family is tired of it. And I think we see a new way and a new approach, and we think this is precedent setting, like you stated, and we're very grateful for God's blessings in this situation.
Now, these are the grand jury findings. The grand jury decided that the officer violated the SPD taser policy. There was unnecessary use of physical force, that they failed to call for medical assistance, and that they placed McGlothen in a cruiser in a way that limited his ability to breathe, and that the officers failed to transport McGlothen to a hospital or call for paramedics.